Dr. Barre Lando. So great to see you and have you on our Urban Freedom Summit.
Justin, always a pleasure to chat with you too. Thanks for having me.
For you guys that haven't seen Dr. Barre Lando speak, he's one of my favorite guys on the planet. This guy is just absolutely legendary in every way, shape, and form. He's lived about 25 lives, the most fulfilled you'll ever seen, and is just brilliant in every single one of those areas, from fitness to martial arts to sports to medicine to botanical gardens to growing, creating brands, Alfa Vedic, to being an orator, podcasting with AlphaCast, one of the top podcasts out there. This guy right here is absolutely phenomenal. And more than anything, his heart is absolutely just as massive as it gets. His intent is as pure as it gets. He's so connected above, and he understands what's going on, the dynamics of the universe, and not only the evil side, but also, the healing side of it and how it all works, so you too can create health and abundance. So, wow, I mean, I don't need to go into your accolades. Like, your resume is unbelievable and unmatched. So let's just dive right into this. Anyone who wants to meet him or see him, go to alfavedic.com, ALFAVEDIC.com, and you'll be able to connect directly with him and see and experience his incredible line of products for Alfa Vedic that he's brought to market. But right now, right here, we are going into Urban Freedom on Go Beyond Summit. Urban Freedom is something that in the last couple years has been brought to the forefront, and everyone is understanding that freedom is, above all, the most important part of living for life. And no one knows how to better do it than you. So when we bring up the concept of urban freedom, what are the first things that come to mind for you?
Well, first off, Justin, you're truly a bro. We surf, we do martial arts, we're into, more the physical culture, lifestyle. And, that's why I've always resonated with you from day one. So just back at you with everything. And, as far as credentials and all those sorts of things, the thing I consider least are pieces of paper that I have hanging on my wall. It's really about life experience. It's about what you feel in your heart and just how well you've been able to ground it in a lifetime. So, and you're one of those rare folks on the planet. So thank you. So urban freedom. Wow. There's so much there, Let's start with urban. The fact is most people are in urban environments. And I know this is more all-encompassing beyond just people that live in cities, but a lot of people do live in cities. And then freedom, boy, there's so many levels of that. So where do we want to go? I'd say freedom really starts with yourself. It's about knowing who you are, which isn't this body that we're running around in. But the body still, we can't minimize the importance of it because it is the vehicle that we use. It's where our will force from the soul level actually meets the road of this embodiment or this physical realm or matrix, whatever you want to call it. And, when we really get that, then we also understand that we're in control all the time of this physical body, even though our educational systems, our medical systems, and so forth have all tried to teach us otherwise. But it's really a capacitor, if you want to look at it in an electrical sense, that receives the resonance from those higher realms of consciousness, which is us, and spirit, which is always pure, never adulterated in any way. When our physical vehicle, when we own that, when we know we're in charge of it, then that resonance can come through to it as a capacitor and embody the pureness of spirit. So to me, that really is true freedom. And let's just start from there.
Wow. I mean, it's like modern day Rudolf Steiner, bringing the A game right out of the gate. I love it. I love it. That's so cool. Well, I mean, this topic is so deep and can go in so many ways, and to bring the will force of what we're designed to do to the forefront for freedom. Geez, that's just massive, and that's what everyone really is searching for. You know, my daughter's 14 now, just going through that whole stage of figuring out where she wants to fit into this whole world and what's her purpose and how do you dive into that. So how do you get to find that will force?
Well, I think I can account for all the white hair on my head. That accounts for the journey that I went through searching for will force.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's about life experience. You know, you don't have to wear yourself out. You don't have to age. You know, aging is even a myth. You know, a lot of us have done it, myself included, because you know, we go through life just trying to figure things out. And we do buy a lot of the programs and get kind of enslaved in a lot of different ways, which creates a lot of stress all the way down to the cellular level. And that is the aging process. There's nothing in our bodies that says, you know, that we need to age, because there's no such thing, except if we want to just, you know, constantly create that prism, you know, that's created by stress, by fear, that's where that pure energy now has to go through that prism, and then that creates all the different changes in our body that we consider aging, infirmities, and so forth. But you know, your daughter, 14 years old, boy, what an opportunity! Because I look at the younger generation now, and a lot of us that went through kind of the school of hard knocks, just trying to figure things out. You know, all that we did through that experience and really taking great risk is that information is available to anybody now. And you don't have to go through what some of us in prior generations went through. You know, it's just all there for anybody that has the courage to seek the truth. You know, the other thing is everything is crumbling. And that's not a bad thing. You know, everybody's saying, well, you know, we're waiting for the other shoe to drop and how bad's it going to get? Well, it was designed to crumble in the first place. This whole artificial edifice that, you know, is created by the would-be controllers was designed to fail. The only thing is they figured by the time they brought us to this point of failure, which we're at now, then they would be in control. But it didn't work. There's too much being exposed, especially themselves. And so somebody in that younger generation now can just simply look and say, wow, what a farce. It's actually a clown show. How could anybody believe any of this? And now with, you know, all the other things that are available to us, the tools. I mean, think of all the things. I remember back in the 60s when we were just bringing in a lot of the, you know, the new techniques in medicine, and, you know, bringing in martial arts to the Western world, and delving into somatics and, you know, osteopathy and all the old school things that got us back, you know, to creating, you know, harmony in our bodies. Now, those are just commonplace. You can see them anywhere. Everything's available. It's online. And so I really think this younger generation, like the rest of us, you know, we're all here to make a choice right now. This is the time of greatest opportunity. So, but it is a choice. Are we ready? Back to your original question, are we ready for freedom or not? And not everybody's willing to be free, because I would just challenge anybody out there, you know, that might be listening. If you're free, that means you no longer have any problems to solve. You no longer have any impediments to do whatever you want to do. So the question is, what does that look like? What's it like getting up in the morning when there's no problems and you can just live and create? That's an immense opportunity, but also a responsibility. And I believe what most people are challenged most by, the folks that are dragging their heels a little bit these days, is they're afraid of their own power, which is synonymous with freedom.
Wow. Yeah. Owning your power. It's a big part. So let's go into the electric body and how it's designed and how we're one with the universe. Can you kind of dive into that whole spectrum and how we're designed to be free and love and create?
Sure. We'll get just slightly nerdy here for a moment, but we won't get too technical. But we'll throw out some terms that are becoming pretty popular these days. For instance, a toroidal field. Everybody's talking about toroids, and the fact that those are the energy fields that are created somehow that are self-perpetuating. It's where true free energy lies. It's where all of our solutions lie. It's in fact how this entire simulation, because it is an electrical simulation, maybe that would stretch a lot of people's imagination, but that's what it is. We live in a thought-based universe, and I say that because thought is the only possible thing that can create an electrical event. And, with contemporary science, we can measure those events at the thought level. And we can also really validate that nothing can come into existence without a thought. Now, you take the species of man, and mankind is the only species on this planet that is capable of coherent conscious thought. And every thought that we have then is an electrical event. It creates a polarization, and that resonance that's created between the two polarities then creates waveforms. And then those waveforms have different dimensions, 18 to be exact, which create every characteristic of what we think is appearing in our physical reality. So every thought has a consequence, and that's why we are in quarantine as a species right now, and in training to learn how to be responsible and also understand that our thoughts are things. But then those thoughts, of course, are just going to be empty bubbles floating around out there in our heads, unless they have some kind of intensity behind them. That's where emotions come in. So if you go back to the old system of alchemy, hermetic science, you understand there's different planes, that create our physical vehicle and our entire realm. And so it starts with the mental, then it goes to the emotional or the astral, and then it goes to the etheric, and then finally to the physical. We could elaborate on all those, but for right now, the emotion is what really gives the velocity, the intensity to our thought that allows it to pop into the matrix. For instance, say you're an athlete in training and you say, okay, I want to be picked up by an NFL team, and you're in high school, and you just kind of go out there and you're lackadaisical about it. You don't put in your time in the gym. There's really no passion behind it. Yeah, you're probably not going to get there. On the other hand, if you have that intensity, that passion, that emotion behind it, and then that drives you to do all the physical grounding in steps, you're going to have a shot at it. So it's like that with everything in life, whether we're starting a business, whether we're going surfing. You know what it's like if you're out there on a big overhead day. You can't just be, you got to have some juice going that matches the juice of the waves, and then you're going to have some fun out there. And that's the thing. Passion is what really brings everything alive into our existence, into anything we're doing. It makes things fun. So as that thought ascends down or descends down through those different levels, and then what it is, it's a compression cycle. What you're talking about is actual informational fields. And those, and that's not hard to understand. You and I are on a computer right now. All it is informational fields. It's bits of data. So our computer will explain everything we need to know about how we work as well. So these informational fields are compacted into a denser state of being that then registers on what we think of as our 5 physical senses, which are actually part of the simulation too, but that's a different matter. Now, simultaneously, there's another every time we, kind of when the rubber meets the road and we have that condensation of physicality, that those informational fields are going in the opposite direction in a radiation sort of cycle. They're dispersing and going back to source. So what we have is a two-way affair. And when that two-way cycle is balanced, then we have a perfect frame by frame outpicturing of whatever we want in our reality. If we're a little bit too conscious or focused on the compression cycle, which we are because we're in the superstition of materialism, then you're not going to really have the glue and the renewal of that radiation cycle that's going to keep our bodies, our experience, and everything perfect the way we want it and in a state of self-renewal. So that two-way cycle is, in fact, a toroidal field. And if you were to outpicture this in like three-dimensional graphics, you would actually see that kind of donut with the energy going in and out in a nice circular fashion, just the way a lot of people show a toroidal field these days. So every cell in our body is a toroidal field. Every mineral in the ground is a toroidal field. Every molecule, our body is a composite of toroidal fields. Our larger realm that we inhabit is a greater composite of many toroidal fields that are also part of the collective consciousness. And that's basically what our reality is. We're in charge of it. We create it every moment. And it is, like I say, an electrical event. There's no other way to look at it.
And with that, aren't we actually born with body sovereignty and born free to have free will and choose and give us this, opportunity to create?
Absolutely. And of course, that's where we'll just kindly call them the predator class, where they created a very elaborate scheme to bring us away from that truth, starting at the day of our birth. 3 days later, they issue a birth certificate on the basis of the certificate of live birth. And then they tell us, well, actually, you're this artificial entity, and this artificial entity owes allegiance and has to another outside being, and also they are your authority and you have to do what you're told. And it starts there. Our parents believe that. That's why we're all having the challenges, because we are engrammed very deeply from day one through the entire public indoctrination system. And then we go out and get jobs, and we've been given this intermediary that we call money, that is supposedly the transmitting utility that gives us the energy just to have a right, where we have to earn a living, where we have a right to even eat, clothe, or, shelter ourselves. So it goes pretty deep, and tell people that that's all a bunch of BS. And, it's provable to anybody. And with myself, it took an entire lifetime to undo a lot of these things, but mostly get my mind around things in the legal, world. And I know you're very aware of this yourself. There's many processes that are now being taught that teach us how we can exit that legal matrix. But it's that's just the form. It's the paper. What we have to do is go back and understand it's an inner game. We have to, again, realize who we are, as we were, originally saying. And then from there, the paperwork will reflect that consciousness of true freedom and no earthly, anything has any authority of us. And how dare they suggest otherwise? But most people, it's tough. What do you do if you wake up one morning and you're free? What do you do with yourself?
Oh man, I mean, it's so cool to hear that. And we're born free. We're born perfect, right? I mean, we don't need a shot right when we're born. Do we? I mean, this is unbelievable.
Not that I know of.
Yeah, I mean, you're the doc, so it's the like listening to hear that. We're born ready to go and ready to connect and to have that connection where we can create whatever we want to create. So yeah, let's go. Let's dive into this resonance of the universe and how we're connected with it. And we are electric beings, and talked about these toroidal fields. Like, let's dive even more into that. And I love hearing about the thoughts creating the emotions and evoking that feeling to be able to create that freedom and abundance and connect to your numbers. I mean, we're all born with certain gifts that are stronger than others, if you will. Our brain types, our body types, our numbers as far as the time and date and where we're born. They give us certain opportunity to be more connect to more abundance and power versus a different modality. So dive into that as far as the freedom. And what I want to get out of this is I want everyone to start to own their power, like right now, and instantly understand that you are just perfect the way you are. And let's clear these blockages out of the way and understand how the universe is there for us to connect to it, to create that in your life.
Yeah, I think we need to get then into concepts of a unified realm. And just a bit of a preface to that, I spent a good part of my life playing the role as a physician. And early on went through my traditional training. I was in emergency medicine services, and then started transitioning into what we would think of as alternative. And I started connecting some dots early on with the help of some tutelage from icons in the field that were still alive back then. And I spent my entire career being very ambivalent about the role I was playing, because I realized that nobody heals anybody else. And what I understood, just like the early Greeks did, they understood that physician is supposed to be a teacher. And, unfortunately, even in alternative medicine, I think we misuse that role and bring people into a state of passivity and dependence, rather than teaching them that they are truly the creators of their own body and their entire realm. So just starting from there, now we get into some other concepts that a lot of people would equate with astrology and things that are a little bit vague or maybe far-fetched. But it's not far-fetched at all when you understand some of the electrical concepts we were just discussing. And what it really is astrophysiology. Because if you understand that we live in an intelligent realm, a space which is a toroidal field in and of itself, and it's of intelligent design, and perhaps even has an intelligent creator behind it, then there is a purpose for everything. So when we look above our heads, just like people from ancient cultures talked about in scriptures from time immemorial, they all discussed in quite detail how this realm works, where these constellations in certain numbers, we always have that number 12 come up. And then behind the 12, there are basically 7 attributes. We could get way off into details about how the whole realm interfaces with different energy fields that are feeding each other. But now, if you look at all that above us, at different times, it's a real sky clock above us. So no different than when you notice the energy is a little bit different down here on the ground at high noon than, say, maybe midnight, and everything feels and looks a lot different. and it affects us different, the way our body wants to go into hibernation, or it's just wide awake and, wants to face the day. It's the same thing with that larger realm. So in that sky clock above us, there's this constant resonance coming down. To understand resonance, you have to understand the concept of ether. Now, one of the things they did early on in scientism, which is what now we call science, is they took the concept of ether away on purpose. Because if doctors, physicists, engineers understood ether, they would understand that that is the transmitting utility that makes our entire realm work. When you were surfing in the ocean, we know that waves need a medium to be transmitted through, and that is water. And the fish swimming under our feet, are swimming in that realm. And that is how they receive information, is through that conduit. And water, if you go back to old alchemical terms, is just a particular one of the levels of that ether. And as it steps down, just like our bodies do that we were describing. And, above that, we have other elements or levels of the ether. And so that ether now receives the resonance from those constellations above us, each one having very distinct attributes. And then let's just say you're born at a particular place in this realm that, is maybe receiving a certain resonance at that time different than another place, geographically. And also you're born at a certain time, a certain month, where one of those constellations with those attributes, with that distinct personality resonance, and you're born at that time. Well, doesn't it make sense that that is going to affect you greatly, because you are an electrical resonant being and you are going to pick up that resonance very readily. And it is not in a deterministic sense. It's not going to say, okay, this is you, because you always have that will force and you are here to ascend and be free of everything, including those primal resonant fields. But those resonant fields are there purposely to give you certain attributes, to give you certain challenges that then, just like an athlete training in a gym, can use those, that friction and also some of those attributes in order to develop your full self on the spiritual level. So when we're talking about freedom, it really these days, we have to be on our A game. We have to understand not just what makes our body tick here on the ground and what to put in our mouth, but more importantly, what we think, what we entertain in our consciousness, how we feel, and understand that we are interacting. We're the way station. Humanity, is the event horizon. We are between heaven and earth, and we are the conduit to bring the resonance of the heavens, of the higher, consciousness realms down to the ground to create heaven on earth. So we have that distinct responsibility and attribute. And the more we understand how this living technology works, which is our realm, then the more effective we can be in it, and the more we can actually establish ourselves as sovereign beings to create at our coordinate in the consciousness exactly what we want.
Exactly. And how do you do that? How do we clear? How do we move energy via breath work or what have you? And then how do we heal through intake and exercise and sweating, loving, touching, breathing, smiling, getting incredible minerals from Alfa Vedic? How do we as a species evolve to that higher level of consciousness?
Well, first of all, just as we're embodied in these vehicles, these physical forms, we have to understand, again, going back to electricity, that it is a capacitor, but every cell that makes up that body is needing certain elements that on a more microscopic level are the capacitors that match the resonance above us that we're suggesting. So these would be the cell salts, the minerals, and so forth. And now these, again, allow, if they're present in the bloodstream, for the cells to have exactly what they need in order to build the body. Disease is an issue of deficiency. And so when these things are available, just like any tradesman on the ground or, construction crew, with the right skills, the right tools, and especially the right materials, you can fix anything, you can build anything. And the cells are no different. And they are not limited in any way, except these days, especially, they are more short on supply. So we start there. We just have to have ourselves grounded and have available in the bloodstream those basic elements. And the cell salts, the primary ones, again, have that interesting number of 12 cell salts. And then the different organic matters that we get in our food, and then full of humic minerals and things that provide the juice that those capacitors, those 12 cell salts can create the resonance in the cells. Working with that resonance in conjunction with that organic material can construct the body, fix the body, do whatever it needs to do. Okay, so now beyond that, I don't believe there's any one way to go about things. One person might find their spiritual self by going out and starting a business. Somebody else might find it, surfing. Some people will gravitate to the martial arts, but the bottom line is whatever it takes. Number one, to create a nexus, or not create because it's already there, but renew a conscious nexus between ourselves and our outer environment. Because our outer environment, and this is where it gets a little tricky in an urban environment. I'm out here in the boonies, and it's a little easier to just take a walk in the forest, and you just feel it very strongly. But even in an urban environment, you can go to a park and do Tai Chi. You can do all sorts of things, or you can even sit in your apartment and, with your consciousness, create that connection with nature. But nature, because it has the prevailing waveforms that are true to the the original blueprint, those are very powerful. And then it creates, the more we expose ourselves to that, then that resonance becomes more of us. And then whatever practice we take to just, calm ourselves internally, turn off the dialogues and the toxic emotions, and just get in that space. And then, of course, we're going to feel who we've been the whole time. There's nothing to recreate, or there's nothing to do. It's just finding what's already there and getting rid of all the overlays. And they're literally electronic overlays that have created that matrix of experience that makes us feel that we're not free somehow in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, what a great point. These nature prevailing waveforms. I mean, we see them when you can connect through sound or light, these frequencies, vibrations, whether it's through your Alfa Vedic line or through doing light and sound therapy or getting out in nature. When you do this over and over again and connect to those, that becomes your nature. That becomes your makeup. And the closer we can get to nature's design, what she's designed for us, because we're one with it, the faster we're going to facilitate healing and manifesting, creating, and living our true self, and really having that body sovereignty of feeling free and being free.
Yeah. I think there's one additional element that's necessary today, because and again, not to get all dark, and I don't even think it's a negative. I would spend a lot of my life as a gym rat, as playing sports. You go there because you meet a lot of resistance, and you purposely go there. You learn to get a kick out of it, and you get stronger using that resistance that you get in a dojo, fighting against other people, or working in a gym, lifting weights, or going out and doing 440 repeats on the track. That's the thing that makes us stronger. So when we know they're throwing the kitchen sink at us right now. They're trying to put things into our bodies. They're bathing us with shortwave microwaves. They're spraying the sky, adulterating our food and water, messing with our genetics. My feeling with that is, okay, bring it on. Is that all you've got? Because if we're really, again, on our A game, and if we know that we are the center of our own universe and the only authority in our universe, all that they're doing is creating overlays at a very low level. Now, they're powerful, and if we aren't aware of them, they can be of great detriment. However, we're the only ones within our coordinate of consciousness that can go to our own source and create the energy fields that we want, that are going to have that harmonizing effect that will overcome every single bit of that. But it's really helpful, I believe, these days with some of the devices and techniques that are available that can really help us unscramble our thoughts, because especially these microwaves, they do scramble your mental plane, your emotional plane, and it makes it very hard to create that coherence. So some of these devices, like I love the 5G bags, because that's a concentrated, more of a long sinusoidal, type of energy, the way it exists in nature, but it emanates for a good, field around those, that then makes it impossible for those short microwaves to penetrate that energy field. So I think things like that could be of great value. And, whether we're sleeping, whether we're, using our electronics, we all use them these days. I like using them. There's nothing wrong with that. Or if we're just doing our meditation, or even in an exercise space, I think those are very valuable, just to create that field, because it's then going to make it much easier for us to tap in and do all these things we're talking about. And then, of course, the more we can, understand where to get unadulterated food, water, do things to internally cleanse ourselves, so that the things we're breathing, that they're dumping into the sky these days, don't take up resonance in our bodies, and they just keep moving right through us. And then the more that we're in a good space of thinking and feeling double plus happy thoughts all the time, then that's going to create that electromagnetic resonance that is not going to become an electromagnet to hang on to that stuff. Our bodies are just more apt to just let it pass right on through.
Yeah, I mean, so much, Bear, to unwind in what you just said. Let's start with the grounding bags, 5G, deep sleep, grounding bags. I mean, they kick off a resonance, and that's that Schumann resonance, that healing pulse of the earth that we're one with, that has the same frequency when we're in the theta delta state, when we're sleeping and restoring and going in those REM patterns. And then for performance, we're 8 to 12 hertz or waves per second, just above that Schumann resonance. And so these are the flow states and the brainwave states that we want to connect with and get to. And the way we do that is by getting grounded, clearing that toxicity, making sure our flushing mechanisms are on, and then having these incredible, intake and nutrient dense minerals to add back into our system, because it's been depleted. There's no question it's been depleted. One of the things I wanted to share with you, and I have to have a little bit of confidentiality on this one, but a colleague at the Stature of You who grows, and they have greens that they grow up in Northern California, had challenge growing one of his greens, and it was such a challenge. He looked to the soil and sampled the soil. They found a bacteria in the soil that basically dehydrated the soil, and it's the same bacteria that they're using in the chemtrails to stop rainfall. And he'd never seen that in his entire years of farming, and this was the first time they've seen that bacteria in the soil. So we are definitely getting inundated at levels that we've never seen.
Yeah, and I'm a full-time farmer, as you know. and I grow medicinal herbs. That's my specialty. But we grow all our own food. And, we have a growing operation here, and we've been growing for years and years. And we, did all the permaculture, biodynamics training, all that. But, like anything else, experience is more valuable than any of that kind of training. And for the first time, I would say in the last decade, we have noticed similar things. And because we're in those circles of, more full-time agriculturists, we get a lot of reports from our colleagues of the same thing. Now, I have a way going back to electricity again, and this is just something that I did with bodies, did the same exact testing that I do on my soil now. Because we live in a very pristine area and we have pure spring water and the cleanest river, right on our property, in the whole country. The clean water, the unadulterated soil, never been tainted by industry or massive agriculture. That overcomes a lot of the things that other people tell us they're having more of a problem with. But every so often I'll notice that, maybe one particular plant is just drying out prematurely or just something's not right. I go to the soil and I do soil sampling. And I take a lot of samples. You can't just take one. And I don't send it off to a lab because those labs are bogus. They don't tell you anything. But I'll extrapolate different chemical elements from the soil. But understanding that the source of all those biochemical elements is electricity, then I have a way where I put the amounts, the titers of each of those elements in a particular soil sample into a mathematical equation. And then that converts chemistry to electricity. So now I'm able to understand electrical resistance, conductivity, and all the things that any electrician would, look at if they're just coming to your house to check out your electrical system. And so that's the way I look at things. Now, to fix things, I can tell by this line of resistance I get from this mathematical formula. And it, when you say math, math is not reality, but math can tell you how things are unfolding on that physical manifestation through resonance. A lot of present day science and mathematicians, they say, oh, it's a purest language and it's, it's what makes the universe. No. It's a way to interpret things. So we can't get too overboard with math, but it is useful sometimes. So just to put that in. So now what I'm going to do is understanding that line of resistance, electrical resistance that I can see in the formula. I know how to tweak different elements, amendments that I might put in the soil in order to create a smoother flow of electrical resistance with less loss of energy. And doing that, it does several things. When the electrical system of the soil is right, it's going to overcome any kind of organism or contaminant in there and convert it back to a natural organic state. So right away, it takes away all your problems. It's also going to create good topsoil for the future because you're not just throwing in all sorts of organic fertilizers or inorganic. It doesn't matter. Organic is good. They're cleaner. But, when you just try to over nitrogenize the soil just to force growth and everything, you're burning out the soil. So you're building nice topsoil for the future. And also you're doing it in a way where it's very economical, because if you know how to tweak things electrically, then you don't have to use, just tonnage of amendments in order to get the results you want just to grow something for one season. And then the soil is stronger, better balanced for the next season and successive seasons and successive generations. And that's at Alfa Vedic here. We are, more of a humanitarian foundation with the philosophy and the spiritual foundation that we are creating agriculture, not just for ourselves, but for 7 generations into the future.
I love it. And I've been doing that. I mean, I sent you some Soil Force, which is white montmorillonite, the purest form, 85+% pure. That can help bring those minerals back to balance that for people that don't have those frequency, opportunities to figure out. But and so I've sent him some to help solve that challenge as well. But you guys, getting this frequency back to the homeostasis is what we're designed to do for us. Same as the soil. And when we keep riddling the soil with 5G and pesticides, herbicides, and modifying things, when we riddle our body with all of that as well, and fake foods and just saturated, oils that are all processed, our bodies aren't able to flow the way they're meant to flow. And when we're not flowing like a river, like the Smith River does, we're going to get stuck. It's going to be this stagnant pool, and we're going to see dis-ease in our body. We're going to see just stunted growth in plants or trees or animals. You're just not going to see optimal health and across the board. So this is a huge topic.
So can I just say one quick comment about the stones that you sent me for agriculture?
Yes.
We're just getting through the last of our planting for the season right now. Then we're going to have to get into earnest feeding. And the way I feed things is I have a vortex brewer, and I won't get into exactly what that is, but it's based on implosion technology that Victor Schauberger, the Tesla of water, as he's called, the way he understood it. So we make nutrient brews with this implosion technology, which adds amazing attributes to what you're feeding the plants. So I'm going to take your stones, and I know you and I have been talking about this for a year as far as me getting to use these, but I'm going to pulverize them. And because I create powdered formulas that I put in the vortex brewer, and your stones are going to be part of those, into my biodynamic formula that I brew with the vortex, and then we'll be feeding with that. So we're not just, we're going to get a lot more, we're going to be able to canvas large areas by creating those brews with those micronized forms of those stones.
Oh, I love it.
I'm really excited. Yeah.
Oh, that's super exciting. Are you going to do it about 250 mesh? Are you going to make it into pure mesh, or how are you going to pulverize it? Because I have mesh forms.
Yeah. That would make my life a lot easier. Let me talk to you about that later. Okay. Because we have a way where we're just going to pulverize it and just make it into a fine micronized. But yeah, if you have it ready to go, I'd love that.
Yeah, we have it in powder form and mesh, and then we have that's like 250 mesh, and then the toothpaste will come out with pink marmalade. That would be 300 mesh, which is standard toothpaste size. So
that would, yeah.
Yeah, so
that would be, and we spray it, so that would get through a sprayer. Probably it's small enough, right?
Well,
because we foliage feed.
The spraying.
Sorry, I don't want to keep. Yeah,
we'll
figure it out
way back, so we can derail. Yeah. So apologize, but the montmorillonite might be tricky in a sprayer because it's a clay-like substance. So when you, it'll get junked up. It'll junk up a hose or a sprayer, some type of a system. So you need to be careful.
We'll put it down.
Maybe a little bit in it wouldn't do it, and then you just got to flush it. But if you have a lot in it, it'll clog it up for sure. Because the reason we do the soil force in the chunks is because you don't have to keep sprinkling it on. It just one little nugget. Once it's dissolved, then you do it again. That's a couple months later. So it's easier.
Yeah.
So
I look forward to putting our heads together.
I know, it's so fun. Well, there's so many great ways we can go on this. And this is the storytelling that I actually wanted to see, is how the universe is made. How can we clear this stuff? How do we understand all the noise out there that someone's saying something really loud and for a really long time doesn't make it reality? That's not the truth of it. And really understanding that our body has to be on optimal. Kind of what you're saying is when we're surfing, and you got to commit when you're dropping into a double overhead wave. If you're not ready to go and fully committed to doing what you're wanting to do, you're going to get worked. So, and it's,
And yeah. And
it's,
where I used to surf, the waves sucking out, and exposing all the coral that you're dropping in on. So you got to make it. Otherwise you get raked.
yeah, I mean, you have that Hawaii, that's all coral reef out there. So
Yeah.
that's the essentially equates to us on land and doing the things we want to do. We have to fully commit, or we're going to have some hard times and hardships coming. So
Yeah.
there's this whole storytelling, and then going into the proper intakes and the grounding and the nutrient dense soil that we're wanting to feed our plants that want to feed us. And this is where body sovereignty really, for me, comes into full spectrum. Is it's not just one thing, but we're born free, and then we want to maintain it. And the way we do that is by understanding how we're designed, and then how we connect into that infinite flow of the universe. And that's, I mean, you've story told it to perfection today. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And, my final thoughts is that, there's a lot of dark stuff going on out there, and you want to know what's happening so that you can avoid it, and then also know what you have to do. But more than anything, as we discussed fully today, you have to understand how things work. And if you don't know how things work, starting with yourself, then solutions are going to be a little elusive. And what we need to be is understanding that we don't want to give too much of our energy to the darkness, so that we are more proactive in doing what we need to do, which is basically creating a parallel universe. So as we observe from a distance what's happening now just crumble, we aren't just sitting around wringing our hands. We actually already have a system that we're living, growing our own things, taking care of ourselves, just, creating the technologies so that we aren't part of it. And so it's about, being aware, but being proactive, and just engaged in creating what we want to create.
Definitely. And I'm looking at this whole urban world right now, and I recently moved to more of a beach community, so I have access to the water really readily, and then beach volleyball. So I'm outside constantly, more so than I've ever been my whole life, which I'm so grateful for. And but I'm looking around at these urban environments that people come in, and if they go to work, what they do is they come home and then they just, eat and drink and sit in front of a TV and just go brain dead. But if we can really shift that and say, hey, stop listening to these electricity isn't essential. Like that isn't, like, we don't need man-made electricity to live. Like, that's a luxury. So get out of your luxury home and start doing what really is essential, which is getting grounded by nature and doing things, creating those experiences and those memories, and feeding your soul with the beauty of nature and activity outside of your square box that has man-made radiation in it. And if you turn on a TV or radio, that's feeding you propaganda of fear. And they're trying to say it as loud as they can, as long as they can, to feed their own profit. When you start getting outside, you'll start to feel a lot better. And so I just wanted to add that your talk inspired me to say that.
Good. Couldn't agree more.
All right, you guys. Dr. Barre Lando, Alfa Vedic, ALFAVEDIC.com. Check out their Alpha Cast with Mike Winter, his sidekick, which is, just a brilliant mind in his own right. You guys, we are so, so thankful. This will go down, Dr. Barre. I mean, I've done several videos with you on our summer. This is one of my all-time favorites. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom.
And thank you. Thank you. Keep up the unbelievable work you're doing.
All right, lots of love, you guys. You're gonna have some discounts for Alfa Vedic, so check it out on our shopping cart so you can benefit and become part of the Alfa Vedic community as well. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.